Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Have you ever had that quiet nudge, or maybe it's loud, unmistakable pull, to take a leap of faith, to leave what was known and familiar behind and step into the unknown? Well, that's exactly what my guest today, Ramona Rouhdoust, did. From being born in Iran, growing up there, moving to Sweden, and now being based in Brussels, Belgium, Ramona followed the call of her heart across borders, across identities, and into a life that was rooted in deep alignment, presence, and purpose. She's the founder of Let's Yoga Shiatsu and is someone whose story is full of courage, the courage to let go of what was known, of control, to release certainty, to surrender to what's true, even when it felt uncomfortable or completely unfamiliar. In our conversation, we're going to talk a lot about energy work because there's some commonalities, some similarities between spinal energetics and Shiatsu as a form of energy healing. And we're going to talk about meditation, pranayama, and the depths of these practices and how all of these practices work together in relation to the more structured system of Ashtanga yoga and why we love all of them, how they can work together and really complement each other to become a holistic system of healing for all aspects of our being. We're also going to dive into what inspired me to create the Spiritual Entrepreneur Archetypes quiz and each of the archetypes that I created through this quiz and how I blended many different modalities and my own studies, my own interests in different fields of metaphysics and mythology and energy healing, as well as the Enneagram and personality typing, to create these archetypes, which was a really fun project for me and is still going on. So I hope that you love this conversation. It's a really rich, valuable conversation about all aspects of our being and yoga and how we can live our practice in a more holistic way. And if you love this conversation, and if you'd like to come see me in Europe this October, I will indeed be teaching in Brussels, in Belgium, October 16th to the 19th, and I hope that you will come for this 4-day immersion and energy integration. I'll be offering spinal energetics sessions for those who are interested, and you'll be coming in to explore your own energy body through somatic practices, as well as Mysore classes, philosophy, pranayama, all of the things. So I hope that you'll come join me in Brussels and meet Ramona in person in October. We would love to have you and say hello. And until then, we have this beautiful conversation for you to dive into and enjoy and just absorb any of the little gems that are here for you to take away. Hi, Ramona. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. It's great that you could come on the Finding Harmony podcast today.
I'm so excited. Just have to say thank you so much for taking the invitation.
Yeah, thank you. I want to introduce you to our listeners and our audience and find out a little bit about you and how you ended up teaching in Brussels.
I came to Brussels 25 years ago.
Wow.
Not knowing that I was going to stay so long. It was just 3 months of my Erasmus scholarship. I was studying medical biology then.
Wow.
At Karolinska in Stockholm. And I got Erasmus scholarship to come to Brussels. And during my stay, I really loved it here. I had to finish my studies. So I went back to Stockholm and finished it. By then, I had my heart here. So I came back and my life started with working as a researcher in the biopharmaceutical. And, I was hitting my head into the wall. I was so busy, working mom, my scientific head into the documents and protocols and all scientific research. And I was pregnant. I had my baby and she got asthmatic. So I looked into healing modalities for her. And I came into a spiritual master, who was a Zazen teacher, and he was a Shiatsu master. And there I started my journey into Shiatsu. Never knew anything about yoga still. I was really into meditation, energy work. I was always fascinated about the body and all this mysterious healing modalities. And after a year of study, I could apply for jobs. By then, I had stopped all other work. I couldn't work anymore. I really felt like I needed to take care of my daughter because she was the reason I got into healing modalities in Shiatsu.
Wow. And
so in the spa, a beautiful luxurious spa in Brussels, I applied for doing massage, already practicing. And every time I could, I would go to yoga classes because as a member, I could, take the facility and enjoy all the yoga classes, all the beautiful classes that were there. And one day, the teacher was ill and they asked me to replace him. I had cannot do this, cannot do yoga, I cannot teach, and then I was like, well, I'm just going to do. And then you guys just follow me. And it's where it started. After the class, clients and people who were also some of my friends came to me and was like, you should do this. Are you not teaching? You should start teaching. This is amazing. And it really got my interest because it gave me such a strong feeling of service. Like, oh, this is also great. This is something I could do. And my journey started into learning a little bit more of a specific Ashtanga because Ashtanga was the type of yoga I could totally see myself in. Mm-hmm. And my journey started there. I mean, then this was 16 years ago? There weren't that many yoga studios here. And I had to, search for India. So I heard that you could go to Mysore and you could practice. It was the first time I met you in Mysore.
Oh, wow. 16 years ago.
Yes. This was like a high bit of the day. You could go and watch the intermediate practices. This was like the highlight of the day. And we were like, yeah, super. And it was amazing to watch everybody doing that practice. And you were there and then people were shouting, harmony, harmony. And I'm like, and so this was our first, but we never connected because it was such a busy time, It was it was a great time though. I met so many people and but then it wasn't really something that was calling me to go back and do this type of,
pilgrimage.
Exactly. My daughter was already, it was the hardest thing I could have done really to leave her. She was already 5, 6 years old. And I went to India to really in-depth my breath work because I was already connected so much into breathing. And to my disappointment, you are not allowed to do any pranayama.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, then especially, but I mean, I think even in recent years, pranayama wasn't really something that was highlighted in the Ashtanga tradition. It was always like, oh, you have to wait till you're in advanced series. And I was fortunate enough to get into advanced series and practice with Guruji when he was teaching pranayama back in 2000 and I guess I was 7. But I had started pranayama before that. I mean, with another teacher who lived in a different city, also Indian. But
tell me a little bit more. How did you come into yoga yourself? How did you? So you already started with the breathwork and pranayama before you were practicing asana?
Yeah. I mean, I started with meditation in study of Buddhism. So we have like so much in common because you were drawn into the Zen and the Shiatsu and the energy work. And that was also what I was most interested in
Yeah.
as well, which I think is kind of interesting. I've thought a lot about this. I'll tell you a little bit more about sort of what drew me that way. But I'm curious, was there something in like your upbringing that kind of predisposed you to be attracted to Zen? Because it seems like such a jump from being a biological researcher researching pharmaceuticals. I mean, obviously there's an interest in the body, an interest in healing or medicine, but
Yeah.
how do you make that leap or that connection to go from like a very science-based occupation to being like, oh, my daughter needs help and has asthma, and I'm going to dive into healing through energy work and
Yeah.
holistic means?
This is it. This actually did needed mostly for myself. I needed to calm my nervous system down. So I remember I used to go to the Zen master to just receive myself and help myself because I was desperate. I couldn't find any. I mean, here I go. I've been studying science all my life and I couldn't even help my daughter she was getting this attack. She was only 1 year old by then. And then I was like, all this medicine that she was getting, this inhalation, I wasn't really much convinced myself, even though I had studied it. I was like, no, there's something else. There's another way I can help her. And so when I get in contact with him, it was mostly for myself.
Yeah.
I was like needed to calm my nerves. I had no idea how to do. I was like Sputnik going 150 kilometers an hour, doing so many projects, working. And, being in an American pharmaceutical company, it was like 10 hours work a day. I was so dedicated and just being at my work and I just couldn't. My heart was torn apart. I needed to be with her like in daycare. And one day I remember I came home to my partner then and I just told him, I need to stop. I cannot do this. I want to start massaging. I think I gave him a heart attack.
Yeah.
What? You cannot do that. I mean, it was a very good job. I was very well paid. I
Yeah.
could not have been, complaining, but I wasn't happy. There was a void in me. There was this calling in me that I needed to, listen to.
Yeah, that's
And
such a big leap, though. Like, that takes a
yeah,
lot of courage to really see I'm not happy in this work and then shift into a position where you're basically working for yourself as a masseuse, like
yeah.
learning how to run your own business as, a contractor. And also without fixed income, without job security, without healthcare,
Well,
there's
I
a
had
lot of,
put a lot of money as a saving because
yeah, that's good. That's good.
that was the good thing. I had like for 2-3 years safely, like, we were by then we were living in a house because this apartment that I am living now and it's my home shala was our apartment. And we had, because of my daughter had asthma, we had to leave. We had to be in a much more environment that is less polluted, less traffic. And so we had moved outside about 10 kilometers away from Brussels. And so, we had everything. I had everything. I just wasn't happy with my work. I wanted to be spending more time with my daughter.
Yeah.
And so that leap was just so obvious for me. I was like, this is it. Here I am talking. And I think all my life, I was looking for happiness. I was looking for peace. And everything that was around me was not pointing that this is it.
Yeah.
This is the happiness and the peace. So I was searching. I was a searcher.
Yeah. Were you always a searcher? Like, did you grow
I
up
was
kind of searching? Yeah.
always, always, always. It's like never ending. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is my pattern. I'm just thirsty for knowledge. I want to know. And this led me to another thing. And yoga led me into different modalities. And now I'm still, I'm like, when is this searching going to end? I'm like, probably when I'm not here anymore. Like, not in this body, this physical form.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it. I feel like knowledge is a big part of our existence. I think we are here for that. We are here to explore ourselves and all this beautiful energy work. It's like talking to me. It's like, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and part of this, I wanted to ask you something about this whole Kundalini. Did you ever have the rise of Kundalini? Did you have, because I don't know, I might have had it and I don't have no clue that it was it. But, like lately in the social media, you can see this big trend of awakening, like quickly, like you feel this emotional burst and screaming
Yeah.
and shouting and shaking. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that is really Kundalini. And it reminds me a little bit of the spinal energetic work that you
Yeah.
do. And maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think, that's what really drew me into yoga was this idea of Kundalini and the rising of the inner, intelligence or connection to God or this divine, awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. But I was very, I would say, obsessed with Kundalini.
I connect with you on that one, obsession.
And I think early in my journey, I mean, that's really what, with meditation, I think you start to go in, you start to taste it. But all of these spiritual texts, and like you, I've always been very much into research and reading and knowledge and, trying to understand things and then going and connecting with the teachers and like getting to the source of things. That was always a big drive for me. That's what took me to Mysore was, I could go and study with Tim Miller or Eddie Stern or David Williams in Hawaii,
Yeah.
like all these sort of like teachers who were teaching and holding spaces. But I was like, no, I want to go study from Pattabhi Jois. That's the juice. That's the origin. That's as old as you can go right now. So that's, I want to go to India. I want to taste it from like the source. That was always my drawing. And same with, even studying pranayamas, I heard about Sri O.P. Tiwari when I was in Mysore. I had done some breath work and some pranayama before, but I was like, I really want a pranayama practice. I want a teacher who's going to teach this. And I heard about him and was just like, no, he's the real deal. He's, he's the guy. Like, he's the head of the institute that researches pranayama in India. I'm like, well, that's it. I got to go. So that was like such a pull and a draw for me, is to really touch in and get that transmission from the teachers and the sources that had that energy to it. Because as you know, and as you've sort of mentioned too, is like transmission is energy, and like we are energy, and knowledge is also energy, and our energy field is knowledge. And so this getting in that energy, being in the energy of someone is impactful. That's the medicine, more than what they say, more than like reading a book, more than just doing your practice. Being in that energy field changes you.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that you can do that on Zoom. You can do that online. I mean, it's maybe not the exact same, but the energy is energy, right? And so it's so much more than, and more expansive in its consciousness. And so as we're talking, our consciousness is connecting. The mere fact that we understand each other means that there's something happening there with this connection, which is that energy field, like locking in and connecting.
Yeah. That is exactly like this frequency that we are rising our frequency, just being in the same room with someone who has that frequency. Like I did feel that immediately when I was with my Zen master. I mean, he introduced us meditation, Zazen meditation. And that was really hard for someone whose mind is like constantly running. And then suddenly you sit like for an hour, not talking. And it was like, but it was amazing. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, my God, it was such a beautiful blessing to just be like in the room with these people who are having the frequency. And as you say, like, yes, now today we have our online session and you can tap into that frequency. You can feel, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? But it's not everyone's cup of tea. I don't feel like it's there yet, hasn't landed yet, that we are really connecting that way.
Yeah.
do you have a way that you bring the yoga and meditation and spinal energetically together? Because this was a little bit my case. Like when I was doing so much of yoga, I was broke in my body, and I was like refuge into my shiatsu, calling my master, and he would just tell me, "You have to stop doing this thing that you're doing." Like, and I couldn't, because I was like, I don't know. I just couldn't separate myself. I couldn't choose between yoga and Shiatsu. It was like a calling to find this balance between these two beautiful disciplines. And it took me a longer time to really fine tune. But is there any way you find it today that maybe spinal energetic can enhance your yoga practice, or
Yeah.
can
Oh my gosh, this is such a deep conversation. First, I'm curious, why did he tell you that you should stop doing the yoga asana?
because I was too much, I have this I have all in or nothing kind of pattern, I don't do things halfway. If I do, I go all the way in. And I think for me, it was because I had such a flexible body, I went quickly into intermediate theory. I think the primary was, I think within 2-3 years, I was done with the primary, and I got introduced into intermediate theory with my teacher. And somehow it just, I don't know. I think my body just hadn't landed it, and I was too much in teaching. I was displaced with a hub of teachers coming in. I think I had 4 or 5 teachers coming every year. I was
Wow.
hosting. I was teaching while I was hosting, plus that I was giving massages. So it was a lot for my body, and I didn't realize it. And I think when I felt the need of nurturing and caring, I couldn't give it to myself. It was just out of my equation. I was good at giving as a giver,
Yeah.
somehow to the community and to the teachers. But when it came to me, I had difficulty. So I was searching a refuge. And I think he was kind of feeling that I needed to give to myself. And so as I couldn't give it to myself, he would say, stop, whatever you're doing. And I just couldn't. And I didn't tell him. And then sometimes I didn't dare actually going to him, because I was like, oh no, he's going to tell me again, why are you doing what you're doing? But honestly, I don't know, I think practice gave me, in a way, super strength as well. When I was really in tune to the asana, and I wasn't doing much pranayama, but somehow when you are really doing the practice well, this whole ujjayi breath, this synchronization of the heart-mind coherence, I needed that. I really needed that.
Yeah.
And I was trusting that it was doing me good. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I know what I need to do. And thank God for COVID, because then I think, like everybody else, you had to stop. You just had to.
I was curious about that because my pranayama teacher always would say, oh, Ashtanga yoga isn't yoga. And it's like, it's interfering with the yoga, actually. It's exercising. And like, it's fine if you do it, but just realize it's exercising. It's not actually increasing your integration, I guess, or like your yoga.
Yeah, but what is it?
So I was curious what your teacher sort of was seeing or noticing.
He didn't know Ashtanga yoga. He didn't know what type of yoga it was, because he wasn't an Ashtanga. He was a Zen master, He was meditation and pressure points. He was very good in pressure points.
But he must have been noticing something.
Yeah. He definitely noticed that. You know what he was telling me? He was telling me, you're masking. You're masking. And I really didn't like when he was saying that. But it was a truth in what he was saying. He was saying, why are you hiding? Your practice, it seems like you're hiding from what needs to be really done and seen. It was until years later I understood what he really meant. It was this stillness because of the yin and yang. He was like, you're too young. You're too in the movement. You're too much. Come back to yin. Start nurturing and nourishing. And it was true what he was saying. And it did resonate with me. But Harmony, I couldn't.
Yeah, no, I didn't stop either.
And I was like, how do I do this? And I was praying. And this is where the rituals came. This is where where my connection with my moon rituals, I was talking to the moon and the spirit, help me. I don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
I know I need to stop doing what I'm doing, but I had the whole program for the whole year set up front. And I felt such a responsibility towards to all these teachers who were supposed to come, and also myself, because I was in my 500 teacher training. And I was like, come on, you can do this voice in me, like pushing me, like, you can do this. And yeah, but to what price? If COVID wasn't there, I think I would have probably hit the wall big time. And so these masters and these teachers, they probably feel that the way, it's not about the Ashtanga. I think it's the way that we were doing it.
Yeah, the way, and I mean, there's something a little bit inherent in the way that the practice is taught and designed that kind of has that pushing quality to it, which, as you're saying, is a no judgment. Like everything has its time and its season. And I think also when we're starting, we kind of need that. You kind of need something to push you, because often there's a lot of like tamas or that heaviness, that lethargy in the body. And so you almost need something that's going to motivate you to strive or to keep showing up, to keep going further or deeper.
Yeah. And also the structure, right?
Yeah, and the structure.
I definitely need it. I mean, I was someone without any boundaries, this all in or nothing kind of personality. I think I needed that structure in a way that really served me, even though it was not really getting my energy where I needed to be in certain times. But most of the time, it was giving me this kick and come on, you can do this, and superwoman. And even my teacher would say, if it was easy, everybody would walk the Mountain Everest. It's only extraordinary people coming to this practice. And it's like, yeah, you're pushing your ego. You're extraordinary. You can do this, But then at the end, the structure becomes like a cave.
Yeah,
At
like
a certain
a prison.
moment, I felt, this was my prison. And I had to break through the structure. And this is where you came into the picture when I met you online during the COVID. I'm like, oh my God, yes, I found finally the pranayama. Although I had been introduced to pranayama from Paul Daligan because I went to
Yes, Yoga Thailand.
Yoga Thailand, and he was amazing. This was a time I took my whole family, like, now, okay, India is not your cup of tea, but you can come with me to Thailand. And even though I knew a little bit of pranayama, I hadn't fully landed in my body. I didn't have a pranayama practice. And thanks to you and thanks to the online program, it kind of got me tasted to the stillness and nurturing and quietness and, this omnipresence that was already there with your breath.
Yeah.
And then I realized how much our breath is really just the whole practice that we do. It's through the breath. Whatever you do, it is through that breath. And that eventually got me into different adventure and endeavors.
Yeah. I love that you bring it to this, because I feel like through all these years, I mean, we can go back to the Kundalini and look at it, but maybe some of us have this draw to these higher states of consciousness. For me, that was always the juice. I did gymnastics, I did dance, I'd worked my body, I'd trained hard, I'd done all of the physical stuff, So that wasn't like something I was that interested in. I mean, it's fun, I could do it. I knew how to discipline myself in order to get that physical success. It was hard. It wasn't easy, which also speaks to my personality. I like a challenge. So there was all those elements to it. But the point for me was, I mean, a little bit for sure, there was some incentive to like, oh, I want to do harder and harder and harder things for sure, right? Because the ego also is very much connected to that sense of achievement. But I mean, my ego was also very much connected to this idea of higher and higher states of consciousness and trying to, have this enlightenment experience and like, what happens then?
Yeah. Now what? Now what am I going to do? I mean, it's so interesting because I really resonate with what you say, because me too. Challenge was great. Challenge was what was motivating me, inspiring me. But it was something else. I didn't know what it was until this Kundalini thing hit me, and I wanted to ask you, is this something that, because I think with my mind, I wasn't ready, but my body was, right?
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. Like with the meditation practice, I think we try and sometimes skip to the end. Like, I'm just going to meditate. But as you say, like the body also has an energy to it. And
Mhm.
sometimes we need to, I think, let that energy move it and disperse it as well, especially as everyone says, the body keeps the score, right? Like we're storing all the memories, all the traumas, all the past in our body. And our body itself is conscious, right? Our body is our subconscious. And so all the things that we're not expressing, that we're not noticing, that we're not aware of, we just store in our tissues. And so there
Yeah.
is like this beautiful mind-body integration. I think that the yoga practice starts to wake you up to. You start to feel like, if I had never done yoga, and I don't know if this was the same for you, but I wouldn't have known how emotion is actually stored in your tissues.
Mm.
Because there's not really anything that I did before that gave the opportunity for that awareness or that release or that arising of the emotional body to come from the physical posture. Like even in dance or gymnastics or swimming or, whatever activities I was doing, running, it's so in the motion, in the movement, that there's no opportunity to kind of like be with the breath in a posture. And I think yoga is kind of that gateway that opens you up to stillness when nothing else in your life allows you to be still. And as you're saying, you're meditating, but your mind's still like going. And so you're not really dropping into the body in the meditation. You're just staying in your head. And I think that's kind of like the disconnect that happens, is we think that enlightenment is a mental exercise, but it's actually a full body integration. It's mind, body, emotions, intelligence. It's everything comes into unity, and it's a unification of ourselves more than like a mind thing or a body thing. Like there is no mind or body. It's the same thing at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that too. In the way, it's interesting that you say that you never felt that sense felt in the body. And I mean, I had a very, very difficult childhood. I was hyperactive, as they called it, and super sensitive. And I think the emotions came a lot in me, like I was a lot screaming. I didn't know how to express all this energy channeling through me. And this is also another way that I got connected to water, because there wasn't any yoga at the age of 5 or 6.
Yeah.
They were just putting me into the bathtub, or we used to go to the north of Iran, and it was like a beautiful seaside. And this was my like way of healing. Body knows how to heal itself when you are really letting it, right? So those part of the emotion kicking and going through is just another way, I think, through yoga being more channeled in a way to become, like union and like the yoke. So interesting as well, the word yoke, as we say, yoga, mind union, that you just explained so well. I learned it recently that it's also a very old Persian name called yur. Yur is actually one. It's what they use in agriculture by then, like then many, in the beginning, it's like an instrument. It's like a metallic holding the two U, which is fested in on the top of the ox head.
Yeah.
And this was called yug in order to harmonize the agriculture part. And I was thinking, wow, this was already used by but did we ever knew that we could actually harmonize ourselves? But we need each other, right? We need actually this other, as we are interconnected and healing. Like body also remembers when you are in connection with another body, and you're practicing together. And it isn't so interesting, that. But this is also the other way that you said, this frequency, that it is so. How does the DNA remember when we are in places that are highly frequency of energy, like in this very high sacred places on earth, somehow the body remembers just being in these places. Did you ever had such an experience, like being in a place where it's highly vibrational and you can already feel it in your cells, in your body?
Totally. I did the Chardham pilgrimage where we go to Gomukh, Gangotri, Yamunotri,
Wow.
Kedarnath, and Badrinath. So the 4 sort of holiest temples in the Himalayas. And yeah, I mean, the energy at some of those spots was, I mean, you can't even describe it. It's just
Can imagine. I can
off the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're in nature as well. I mean, there's the nature element, there's the time or the antiquity element of, there's the millions and billions of people going and pilgrimaging and visiting these places. There's the worship, there's the psychic sort of energy of just drawing on the elements and drawing on these powers, these sources. I mean, on a mass scale, you're experiencing this sort of environment that's able to shift your consciousness or your energy body. But what's also kind of interesting is when I did my spinal energetics certification, both times, level, like the first level and the second level, being in that energy where it's like for 4 days and you have 25, 30 people just completely tuned in to the energetic body, to consciousness, to like frequency, to it was
Amazing.
like, I mean, it was like being high. It was like a total trip. It creates such a high, potent kind of psychic space. And I think that's also even in Mysore, India, why people love to go there, is because you have, again, this collective, this sangha, this energy of people all really like vibrating and focusing on yoga practice in a very intentional, very powerful kind of way that it, you know, whether the teacher's there or not, it shifts your energy, it shifts your consciousness, especially when the quality of practitioners is very high as well, right? And
that's amazing. I mean, you could already see and feel it when we were sitting and watching you. I am not kidding. It was our highly daily dose, just sitting there and watching you guys move together, breathe together, like so many people in the room, all synchronized. It's such a magic, you know? I mean, how lucky were we to just be part of that?
Yeah, it's such a unique experience, and it is very powerful and transformational to both witness it, but also to be a part of it, you know? And different transformation happens both ways, and it is just as powerful because you're part of it. You know, your consciousness is part of it, whether you're doing the practice or you're just being in the energy of the practice.
Beautiful.
I mean, I think probably as a teacher, you even have noticed this. Like, I always know when I'm teaching like workshops or retreats or teaching Mysore at other studios or schools, like I'm going to do in Brussels in October. But just being in that room, in that energy with the practitioners, they're practicing. And as a teacher, you're like, something shifts in you. You feel it. So you're not like, I mean, as much as you're holding the space and as much as you're facilitating and maybe teaching or instructing or sharing or offering, it's such a gift because you're also receiving that energy hit of the hard work that all the students are doing.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's why one of the reasons I don't want to teach in the evenings. And most of the teachings here, I mean, most of the practitioners, they all want to come after work.
Right.
I just don't want to teach it in the evening because I get so high and energized and I have difficulties to go to sleep. And I'm like, no. But it is true. As a teacher, you definitely feel that frequency when you enter into a shala and a room where practitioners are all dedicated and know what they're doing, by the way.
Yeah, there's so much that goes on that's like beyond the physical. I think that's like the secret of yoga is that, especially in the West, we focus on the physical aspects. But the physical aspects, like just like the surface, you know,
it's exactly.
Like it's not the real magic of the practice is through the breath, is through the energy body, and we access the energy body through the breath.
Indeed. And also the feeling of this heart opening. I feel so blessed after each practice. That this is part of the why I was addicted to teaching, because it was just opening my heart so much to just see the faces before and after, and also, yeah, the energy exchange with students. So
Yeah,
I
that's
cannot wait
powerful.
for you to come here. So tell us a little bit, for those who are beginners in the yoga practice, what would your advice be? Where should they start? How should they, go by in this world, the chaotic out there where everybody is refuting into yoga?
Yeah. It's a crazy world.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I think following your aliveness is always important. I've gone through many different stages. I think realizing and recognizing that all of it is an access point, all of it is powerful and working. Like your energy body doesn't, negate any part of you, right?
Mm,
Our mind, our thoughts have frequency. They're part of our energy body. Our emotions have frequency. Probably heard energy and motion is zero motion, right?
yes.
That's part of your energy body. Your physical body, your actual vibrational, physical, density is part of your energy body. Your breath, the movement of prana is part of your energy body, as well as this connection to the divine, right? Your kind of personal soul, as well as our connection to each other, our sort of spiritual collective energy
Yeah.
body. This is
Yeah.
all a part of the practice. And so it's also what makes these different paths of yoga effective, right? Asana isn't better than meditation, or meditation isn't better than asana, but we kind of have to address, depending on what's showing up, the issues that are showing up for us on the level that they're showing up, right? And so the emotional, you could go into a devotional practice and work sort of like on the emotive state. You could go into an asana practice and also work on the emotive state if you're attuned to it.
Yeah, totally.
So much of it is like intention and attunement. And also sometimes it's like doing the thing that is challenging too. Like, at the beginning when we start practicing asana, it's very challenging, and that's what we were talking about, like the structure and the the
But a lot of
discipline and
Yeah, but a lot of people drop because of the challenge, and this is what I find so sad, because I don't know, but is it true that you say you have to connect to that aliveness? If you feel that maybe the asana is not really for you, but you want to do the pranayama, for instance, you could lead them from pranayama into the movement, and
yeah.
that's how I teach today. I also listen. And that's part of the holding space, right?
Yeah.
Holding space is not just your way, it's their way of needed of each and one. So yeah, but it is hard because life outside is so challenging, and people just don't need any extra challenge on top of all the challenges out there, and so how do you go by? I mean, I basically don't teach much anymore asana. I am really to more breath work and retention, and also water. I love this ritual part of the practice. I mean, practice for me was ritual, waking up in the sunrise and, connecting to my breath. And that was something beautiful and mystical about it. And this is also something I inspire my student to connect to, that, which is bringing you on your mat. Doesn't matter what it is,
And as you're talking too, like connecting to water, connecting to nature, that is also a yoga practice, because
absolutely,
you're tuning to the elements, you're like being in the present moment. And isn't that what yoga really is how are you bringing yourself into the present moment?
And this is what actually I need to tell you a little bit of how all these years of yoga didn't really get me to what freediving did for me. When I really just recently, like a couple of years ago, came into connection with breath hold, which, by the way, your pranayama really, really helped me into going deeper into the depth of the sea and the ocean. But it was really going in depth in me, and holding that stillness and silence and also presence. Like I could really literally hear my heartbeat when I was holding my breath and the pressure. And the only thing you would think of is like, how lucky am I? I mean, there's no more trouble out there. There is no more stress. You hold everything into this container, which is holding you under such an amount of pressure. Still very much challenging though, by the way. Wasn't easy.
For sure.
But I mean, I think it was an amazing understanding of, nurturing and silence. Another way that I think my life has been like yin and yang and yin and yang and yin and yang. It's like finding this balance between giving and taking, receiving and holding and so beautiful. And
Yeah,
so,
I think that's such a powerful observation. I feel it's applicable to all of us, right? We're always looking for like the answer. And the answer is kind of like there is no answer. Right?
You hold the answer. You are the answer.
You are the answer. Like just keep bringing yourself to the present and questioning and being with what's arising. And it is this integration. It is like continuing to refine your awareness, continuing to deepen that integration of yourself so that you can feel yin while you're doing yang. You can experience the intensity of yang while you're softening into the yin, right? Like bringing those things together. I like to always use that metaphor of, the potter's wheel and creating the pottery. And if there's any potters amongst us, you're probably a lot better at it than I am.
Are you pottery?
I have before, but
I
you
don't have patience for it, by the way.
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah, it's so hard. You have to have like just enough pressure, but also enough ease to create the structure.
Yeah.
If it's too much, it topples over. If it's not enough, nothing happens.
That's a skill, right? This is what life is about. I think we're constantly fine-tuning between finding the balance between these two opposite beautiful energies. That is us, It's like we're constantly looking for spirituality up there, but for me was going down there.
Yes. Higher mostly means deeper,
Oh, totally.
We want to get high, but in order to get high, you got to like go down, actually.
You need to let go of that wanting to go higher. Just go deeper. Just be more present. Just be just that. That was my greatest teaching, or learning. Water was my guru. And it's funny how it really brings you back into your memories of being a child and also being held as in a baby's, in the mother's womb with the water. So a lot happening, like in terms of emotional, physical, and mentally. It's a beautiful, beautiful practice. And you don't need water. You can actually connect to that water just holding your breath. This is how I picture myself sometimes when I'm not in the sea, because I live in Brussels. I would love to live close to the sea somewhere. Hopefully, I'm holding that vision.
It's coming. Hold the vision.
I'm holding that vision. I wanted to ask you another thing. How did you, when I came into your mastermind program, was, by the way, a most amazing program. Thank you for every day. I felt like you and Marie Folio was like seeing these little pop messages kept, hold that vision. Sometimes it was hard, I was like, everything was just going not the way that I had planned. And I'm like, maybe it's too much. And then it was a message popping up, was perfectly a message to, remember everything's in with you. And thank you, by the way. But you also made the spiritual archetype, which I really, really enjoy taking those questionnaires. And tell us about that one. How did you come back at such a beautiful
one of my million projects? Well, I had this vision for a long time, and I'm still, as you say, I'm still working on it. It's still something that it's just kind of been birthed, but it needs some nurturing and some more. Yeah,
landing.
It's still growing. It's still growing. But yeah, it was really about this idea of like that we have sort of patterns and personality types, and they're not who we are, but it's what we tend to go to, right? So sort of like the Enneagram, it is loosely based on, it's kind of combining the Enneagram with chakras and energy work, as well as Ayurveda.
I loved it. I must say, I really, because it was all the things that I was interested in, was like all in packages. Like, how did she do this?
So yeah, that's basically what I did. I was like, there's correlations between all of these things.
Yeah.
I want to bring it into like a system or kind of figure it out. What's the correlation between all of these things? And create these archetypes that we could use to understand ourselves, but also how we're showing up in the world or what we're more attuned to as far as like creating a business. So for someone who's a yoga teacher or a healer or a coach, there's certain ways that we're going to connect that's going to feel natural, that's going to feel easy, that's going to make it fun for us, rather than trying to fit into someone else's mold or into someone else's idea of what works for them. And I'd been in a lot of coaching programs where it's like you're trying to fit into a business model that isn't actually like attuned to you.
No.
And you can do it, but it doesn't feel easy and it doesn't feel natural. And so I wanted to kind of look at, and also from a spiritual perspective, because that was the other thing. I was like, well, I've done so much of this. Like this has been my field for 25 years is philosophy and energy and Ayurveda and yoga and spirituality and spiritual practices and meditation. So how can we bring that into a deeper understanding of the type of person we are and the type of business we want to create and what might that look like? And so I brought it into sort of a goal for each type. There's 4 types: the holistic alchemist, the embodied manifester, the intuitive visionary, and the integrated illuminator. Yeah. And so they each have sort of centers of knowing, of receiving information. And the holistic alchemist, the center is the heart. The intuitive visionary, the center is the head. The embodied manifester, the center is the whole body, like the soma. And the integrated illuminator is if you're kind of balanced in all of them, right? You have sort of an equal distribution of all of these things. And in a way, we kind of typically start off as, one of those 3, like the holistic alchemist, the embodied manifester, and the intuitive visionary, with one center more predominant. But I think ultimately we kind of all end up, moving or at least like sharing aspects with this integrated illuminator, because that's really where we go. Is it's really like taking what's in your heart and how do I then create something in community? Like, how do I bring that into the world with these other 2 centers? Because you can't really be fully expressed until you've brought all the centers together. So each has like a chakra, a predominant dosha, Ayurvedic dosha, because of course, certain types are more predisposed to certain dispositions. And then there's a spiritual key, and these spiritual keys where a lot of it goes back to the Enneagram. So for the heart center type, the holistic alchemist, what really feeds you is going to be solitude, because it's in your nature to give.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so, it really resonated with.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Yeah. Like how, like it feeds you to give, to be of service. You love that. You get energy from that. But also it is a little bit draining. And so in order to fill yourself up, what you really need is that time alone, that solitude. And I find it so interesting that the diving really does that, because that's like such a solitary, everything about that is creating solitude for you. Exactly. Under the water, you're in the silence, you're in the depth, you're alone. It's like so
integration with me that I have so difficulties with during my yoga practice, and it's also giving to me. And I feel like, diving is doing that, even though every time I'm just looking down to that deep tank, because we have a tank here in Brussels, and I'm feeling like, why am I doing this? Just remind myself, why am I doing this? Because my heart just goes, but it awakens that. And it awakens that union with me and my solitude and my understanding of why am I here? This is the most important thing. Like just dissolve in the water and be just that,
Yeah.
So
And it's so interesting because it's not about anyone else. And you're not
yeah,
actually doing it for anyone else. You're only doing it for yourself, which
yeah.
is like, again, reinforcing that this is just for me.
And
Yeah.
I
It's
am
so
so,
beautiful.
yeah. And I'm so lucky to have found that, even though I have already my shiatsu and yoga, but I'm kind of integrating all these three now. And I'm also creating a little bit something like you, but designing my own course. It hasn't landed yet, but it's
Beautiful.
in the process. And I'm trusting this process because I believe that, yeah, it comes up when it comes up, when it's
Yeah.
ready to come up.
Yeah. When it's ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so then I like just looked at the strengths, where those strengths would show up in businesses, sort of weaknesses or challenges, personally, professionally, the primary fear, because that's often a motivator. That's often what drives us in our actions, in our behaviors, in our patterns, is this unconscious fear in the background,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And then some signs of imbalance, and then some healing attitudes to help restore balance. There's a motivational quote, an affirmation. And then also, I thought it would be fun to connect it with the deities. So that was like at one point in my Instagram growth, I guess. I don't know. That was something that really I love to do, is take the postures and look at the mythology and talk about the spiritual kind of inspiration behind the pose. And so I also connected the archetype to like a spiritual archetype or a devotional archetype, both from an Indian mythological or devotional aspect, but then also from a Roman and Greek mythological aspect, because I was like, well, there's so much overlap here. And those are the ones that I
Yeah.
most sort of know about. And I did both a male and a female deity
Mhm.
archetype to
Mhm.
help sort of, inspire you. Or, for example, the deities with the holistic alchemist are Apollo, because it's god of light and music and healing.
Oh my God, talking about that. I mean, this is amazing. Music is my life now as well. It's like I'm so connected to the sound and
Yeah. Yeah.
singing also my voice. It's like, no, it's really accurate. I'm amazed. I'm really amazed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
bringing this into the world of the mysticism. mysticism.
You're inspiring me to get on the book writing.
I think you
I mean,
should.
ultimately, that's what I wanted to do, was like create a more expansive. I mean, this is sort of the short form version,
Yeah.
and you can take a quiz and find out your own type, as you did, and
Yeah.
then you receive an inspiration branding kit for yourself, which has different colors and fonts and things that would reflect that embodiment type. And I worked on that with my web designer, who's incredible,
I
Candace,
know
as you
her.
know.
Yes. It was so amazing. She really helped me as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
Candace, we're really thankful for what you did. What you
Yes.
do. Wow.
Yeah, she's incredible. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but the bones are there. The beginnings are there. The sort of outline is there, but hopefully I will have the time to expand upon it.
I feel like we're spreading the seeds and we will have enough in our
Yeah. Yeah, I need either to double myself or to increase
Please
the number of
triple
hours
yourself,
in a day.
Harmony. Triple yourself. Do so. We need
I
more people like you.
I keep getting too many ideas, and I get really into them too, just like you. I'm like, yes, I'm doing this. And then I like
Yeah.
go full force into it, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But
I think we need to connect to the heart, whatever hearts. I mean, I always go with the decision. I didn't always do it this way, but now more and more I'm embodying, like if I wanted something, I'm just listening to my body, listening to every cell of my body saying yes, then I know it's it. But I wasn't always connected this way. I was just saying yes and yes and yes and yes. And it's like, oh my God, why am I saying yes to all these things? And I'm sitting there and I'm just putting my hair all over the directions. And I'm like, what did I do again? But I think it's part of us. It's like you say, our constitution, the Vata Priti, this movement is probably our pattern because we can, right? We are connected to all these beautiful projects and
I think the thing is too is recognizing where the energy is and where it's not. And I always remind myself of that. I typically don't say yes to doing things that I don't want to do.
No, but I used to. This is the thing I've learned, and I think yoga really that gave me that discernment. Why are you saying yes to the things that you don't really want to do? Where is this coming from? And so, detachment and creating more and more space to what's essential and what's needed.
Yeah. And really, I think that's also like you start to, as you create those boundaries and you start to get more specific and more clear about what really is making you come alive and what's really feeding your soul and your energy and where you really want to pour your attention into, things start to like line up a little bit more clearly. And sometimes it's just a matter of kind of being patient while things are coming into alignment, and we're like, I want it now. But
that was one of my questions to you. I'm like, how do you do it? I mean, how do you trust the process? You keep saying, trust the process, trust the process. How do you do when everything, your ground is shaking and you just can't find yourself and you just can't just say, what process? Here you are sitting there. But I mean, along the way, there are so many practices that you can just connect to and just say, doesn't matter anymore. What matters is just here and now and this breath, right?
Yeah. And I think that's also where, bringing it back to spinal energetics, that's really where that helped me a lot, actually, was the breath work. Pranayama for sure set such an amazing foundation, is still my go-to primary practice. For me, that's the most transformative practice you can do. If you do nothing else in your whole life, figure out, get a pranayama teacher and learn pranayama. That's it. That's what I'm going to tell everyone. And you can do it no matter where you are in asana. To say it's only for advanced asana practitioners is garbage because everyone breathes. You can learn to breathe. Right?
This is
you don't even have to do asana.
Exactly. And this is so sad. And I feel like in my own experience, I could have come to this already 6 years ago. Why did I waste my time?
But you didn't waste your time. You didn't waste your time.
I didn't. But in a way, it could have really processed. I could have processed this. But then again, I'm like, this was the divine planning. And it's beautiful, like you say, get a good pranayama teacher, the one that can really guide you, because there's so many hacks out there today. You just do this breath and do that and just, which does help to some extent, but really going depth. That's the key.
Yeah. And someone who, I think it's not just taking the course, but who can you create a relationship with that you could reach out to and they can guide you? To me, that's essential. There's so many courses out there on breathwork or pranayama, even certification courses, but do you have the kind of relationship with the teacher? Is the teacher available enough to actually be with you through the process?
And that's
kind of key, especially with pranayama, especially when you're trying to create a practice and a routine and do something for you. And the thing that I think is so different in the Kavalyadam's approach, in the way that I was taught and the way that I teach, is that you're developing a practice that's unique for you. It's not just one size fits all. It's not like you do A, B, and C, and then you're done. You have to learn how each practice affects you, and then you develop that routine and you stick with it, and then you can change as you change, right? And so it's very individualized.
Exactly. And I think this integration is super important, right? You cannot just jump from, you have to, because it has an impact in your nervous system, because I really, really feel that is most important. And having a teacher, like you say, to come back to and have a feedback and say, what do I do now? Just be guided. It's super, super. But come back to spinal energetics.
All right. So let's go back to spinal energetics.
How did that help you?
Yeah. I think you're talking about the big picture.
No, like for instance, in Shiatsu, we do the self-healing. Like we have a self-healing program like called Doing, where you do your own auto massage, self-massage, and it helps you to get your prana and help. And then it helped me to integrate into my yoga practice. So I was wondering if spinal energetic, you have something similar, like you can give it to yourself, like bringing that energy up in yours so it can help you more within your teaching and your own practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like some people say that they do it to themselves, and I guess you could kind of put on music and just like listen to a playlist and kind of see what happens in your body and your energy field. But it's really a co-created space. If you're to do a full session where, like, as a facilitator or a practitioner, I'm watching the client and their body. And this is kind of the special thing within it. This is why it works well in a Mysore space, because as a human, we hold energy, right? So there's parts of our body that aren't connected to our consciousness. We've cut them off or we've disconnected them.
Yeah.
Often those are the places that we store a lot of tension, right? We just I'm just going to shove that in the junk drawer
back
back there.
there. Even don't think about it. Do not touch that part.
Right? And even when we're breathing, the breath doesn't fully go into those spaces either because they're so cut off. And the breath is just part of the movement of our consciousness in our body. And so as a facilitator, when the client is there, you're looking, you're watching, you're observing. Like you actually enter quite a deep kind of meditative space where you're tuned into the energy and the physical body, because the physical body is just energy. It's just denser energy, right? Yeah. And so you're tuned into both the seen and unseen, or the obvious and the not so obvious. And you're noticing where there's rich areas of energy and where there's disconnect, or maybe, you'd say less areas of energy or deprived areas of energy where the energy isn't moving. And you're watching to see what signs, because the body is the subconscious, right? And also, as you've said, and as we've talked about, the body wants to heal itself. It has an innate ability to heal. It doesn't want to be disconnected. It wants to be connected. And so the body will show you either through kind of a movement or through very subtle kind of like twitches, or through the way the breath is going. I mean, it can also not be subtle. It can also be like shaking and tremoring and different things. Yeah. So subtle, not so subtle, however it is. And as a facilitator, you're helping through sound, vibration, intention, this connection of consciousness, even in your own body, to help move and direct that energy so that the flow starts to integrate. Right? Because the healing happens when there's connection. Yeah. And so it's just about creating more conscious connection in the body. And so for me, I feel like that was the most powerful, because I had reached a place in my asana practice where it wasn't connecting me anymore. It was almost disconnecting me. Yeah. And I felt like it wasn't helping. and there was like no energy for it anymore, because I felt like this isn't helping me anymore. Yeah. And so when I was able to drop in and go into this space of consciousness, which is when you're receiving, you also enter a very deep meditative state, because you're so tuned into your energy body and the vibration, and just like, I don't know, you enter a different state of consciousness.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Do you also use music, you said?
Yeah, we use music too, sound.
That's it. That's quantum medicine for me. That's it.
It is. It's quantum medicine. And so to be able to go into that deep feeling space and let the body respond, react, move, shake, cry, whatever was there, just allowing the body to express or not express in whatever way it needed to, was like, instead of pushing my body into a form to try and create a somatic experience, was about surrendering to the somatic experience that was already here And through that, it awakened not just a deeper connection to consciousness, to this, current of the movement of consciousness in the body, but also it then allowed me to kind of reapproach my asana practice in a very different way with a new energy that helped.
I totally resonate when you say all this with the Shiatsu, because it's exactly that meridian energy point where you really are forced to listen and nurture your body in a different way. So in practice serves you rather than destroying you.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's why I was asking about your teacher at the beginning, like what it was, because I think sometimes the teachers that are, quite evolved, let's just say consciously, they see how we're using spiritual practices to bypass that deeper work.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that deeper work was that I wasn't just enough, courageous to look into my vulnerability.
Yeah.
And the wound was too deep. So I needed the masking. So I am grateful for the practice, what it gave me. It supported me. It saved me from breaking. But you never break anyway. You're healing. Whatever you do, you're healing. So
Yeah.
body is the process, and all we can do is just go with this modality and all the things that are coming. I mean, all those different practices like spinal energetic, quantum medicine, sound healing, chanting, pranayama. I mean, I think how lucky are we? There's so many modalities out there, and I wanted to do them all, and I hope that I have enough years to live so I can do them all, because I want to do spinal energetic with you when you're coming here. That's
100%. We can do it. We got it
we can do an
guaranteed.
exchange. I would love that. So tell us a little bit when you're coming.
Yeah.
You will also do some sessions that are available for people who can book you through.
Yes, definitely. October 16th to the 19th will be our workshop, and we'll have time for sessions too, either during or a little bit before or after. So yeah,
And
it'll
I'm
be wonderful.
so excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. And I love that you bring that up. I just want to highlight what you said, because I think it's really important that people hear what you said, which is the bypassing is also part of the healing. That there's an innate wisdom to humans, and we take on as much as we can handle at the time. We have to trust that. And that's part of the patience, and not, rushing the process, and trusting the process is that we're doing absolutely as much as we can when we can, and to just giving ourselves that patience, that compassion, that being with ourselves is part of the medicine, is the healing journey.
Yeah.
And so I think having these, teachers drop these little seeds of like, maybe you should really stop that. It is helpful. It's good because it sits there in the back of your mind and you're like, maybe this isn't really totally working for me. But it's not going to take root. It's not going to like grow until you're ready. But you need the seed.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that I think they should address it differently to people with this type of. I mean, if you would have told me, like, maybe you should nurture yourself more in a different way. You can do your practice, but do it this way or that way, so it can, But anyway, I believe that, like you say, whatever it's said, it's meant to land like a seed.
Yeah.
A couple of years later.
Yeah, that's the thing. It takes some time to take root, I mean, it might even be a decade later, but then you're like, oh, that's what that person meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Grateful
so
for all these
interesting.
teachings anyway, and I'm grateful for everyone who comes in our way, because everyone has a message and everyone's giving us exactly what we need to hear, the time we need to hear, even though we don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just there for it.
Yeah.
I'm really,
100%.
really looking forward if there is anything else.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking forward to seeing you in Brussels too, and having this time together. And thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. It was
Thank
really,
you for having me. It was wonderful to see you.
really inspiring. We'll do some pranayama too. Didn't you love that conversation? I just love listening to how this deeper work, pranayama, energy healing, and yoga asana even helps to reconnect us to what truly matters and helps to heal and regulate and restore not just our body, but our mind and our entire energy system. And there's one practice that I've been doing for over 20 years. I was initiated into the practice by a guru who was very, very powerful and the head of the Kavalyadam Institute, Sri O.P. Tiwari, and practiced with him for many, many years. Still am practicing the teachings and the practices that he gave me. But this is the one practice, the pranayama practice, that really, for me, is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. It not only helps you regulate your nervous system every single day and gives you a new ability, a new threshold to manage stress, but it also helps to focus the mind, to create more mental clarity, to create space in your day, because time and feeling time pressure is an emotional experience. So the pranayama practice is really the one practice that I feel everybody, especially yoga practitioners, need to start to develop. The practice of yoga needs to move beyond asana and into these deeper aspects of breathing and connecting to the breath and the energy body. That's really what the yoga is about, right? Is understanding yourself in these more subtler ways and experiencing the movement of subtle energy within yourself and higher consciousness. So that's why if you're interested in going deeper and you want to study more with me in an intimate space, you still have time to come into Ancient Breathing 2.0. We've started with the introduction class, but this is basically a self-study program. Inside, you'll find all the modules and videos and teachings and PDFs and everything you need to learn how to start and continue a pranayama practice. You'll learn about Ayurveda and the doshas and how each pranayama practice will positively or negatively affect different dosha types and therefore different physiological conditions. So the way you breathe changes who you are. And the way you breathe matters because the way you breathe will determine how your nervous system is responding in your everyday life. And so I would encourage you to come into Ancient Breathing. I'm teaching live classes this round for the next 5 weeks. Come on in. They're on Sundays. I would love to support you in cultivating a personalized pranayama practice that is specifically designed for your constitution, your stage in life, even taking into consideration the time constraints you might have and your capacity. So this is not a one-size-fits-all pranayama practice. Not everybody needs to do the same breathing exercises every day. What you do need is a practice that's tailored to you specifically and that suits your needs and your constitution and your physiological conditions. And that's what I'm here to help you do. That's why it's important to have a teacher and a guide and someone who really understands how the breath works in the body and how it affects the energy system and the mind and also your nervous system on a very intimate level. So come on in. You still have time, and I would just love to support you inside this program. It is my premier spiritual practice pranayama program, but it's also going to change your life and change your health in so many ways. So if you have any questions, DM me on Instagram. I am around. I am so happy to answer them for you. And I can't wait to see you inside Ancient Breathing 2.0.
That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.